Hi, everybody. Welcome to a very special edition of the podcast. Today, we are going to have a riveting conversation, and it's a very intense topic. Today, I'm joined by Jennifer Kirkpatrick. In 1989, Jennifer's sister, Jill Gibbons, was murdered in Oneonta, New York. And what I'd like to do today is spend some time talking with Jennifer and clarifying some of the details about this case. Some of the details I will provide in the description section of this video, but just to give you a quick overview, on Tuesday afternoon, September 12, 1989, Jill was murdered in a municipal parking garage in Oneonta, New York at approximately 1:30 p.m. That evening, she was scheduled to show up for work. She was a bartender at a bar called the Rose Ave Country Club, which was located on 514 Main Street in the city of Oneonta. However, when she didn't show up, as she normally did, all sorts of red flags went off. With that, I'd like to welcome you, Jennifer, and just start out by asking the question that everybody seems to be asking me: why did this happen?
Because he's a predator. And I think that she was in the wrong place at the wrong time. And he wanted to stab someone. And she just happened to be there. She was not the first person, or the first woman, I should say, or young woman that he approached. So It was pretty much senseless. It wasn't. There was no rhyme or reason to it. He just did it.
And just backing up a little bit and providing some of the background, that afternoon, your sister, Jillian, she drove a friend to college who was taking classes at SUNY Delhi. Mm-hmm. And then she returned to Oneonta, and my understanding was she was there to cash a check and have lunch with your mother, who worked at Brazie's, which was
not even to have lunch, just to cash her check and go on her way, go home until she had to come back to Oneonta. And
just by coincidence or happenstance, she happens to be in that parking lot while David Dart, the man who was convicted of murdering your sister, just happened to be there lying in wait.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And to add to this story and the incredible drama of all of it, Jill was supposed to show up for work on Tuesday evening at the bar to relieve you, and she didn't show up. So it's 6:30, 6:45. What's going through your head as Jillian fails to show up for work?
Something's seriously wrong. Mm-hmm. She would always show up at right around 6:30. Her shift didn't start till 7. She would always come in early, and we would chit chat about things that are going on, how my daughter was. I just had a baby not quite a year before that. What was going on in the bar, just to catch up. I didn't live at home anymore, so we were really close. So we would just chit chat, and sometimes she'd help me out if it was really busy, or and then we would just exchange shifts.
Yeah.
I might stay, have a drink or something like that, and go home. But
another detail that I'll share with the viewers is that Jillian graduated from Milford Central School in June of 1989. So this is just over 2.5 months before she was murdered. She turned 18 years old on June 26, 1989, and immediately thereafter began working as a bartender. Her intention was to save money to attend school that fall. So she was enjoying her time working as a bartender. She was popular, very well liked. Yeah. Obviously, as the evening of September 12th proceeds, your sisterly instinct kicks in. Something is seriously wrong.
I just kept calling everybody I could think of. And I want to say along the way, I found out that she did take her friend, Erica, to Delhi.
Mhm.
So, like I explained before, all I could think of was her like going off this one part of the mountain. You know, I could see it in my head that like she just went off, and it was, you know, and that was it. Nobody would see her. And I remember calling like the state police and seeing if there was any accidents reported, you know, on the way to Delhi or on the way back. You know, I called the radio station.
Which is a memory that lots of people have.
We didn't have any cell phones. I didn't even have a phone at work. We had a pay phone at work. So, you know, I just kept calling everybody over and over and over again. Called the radio station, and they put on there that, you know, hey, you know, Jillian Gibbons, your sister's trying to reach you. If you're out there, could you please get a hold of her or another family member or friend and let everybody know that you're okay. And people still to this day remember that phone, remember hearing that on the radio.
Absolutely.
Gosh, it wasn't till like 11 o'clock where my boss actually, and I was kind of ticked off, to be perfectly honest with you, because, I mean, she had lost a sister too in a car accident. So for her to wait almost, you know, 4 hours to relieve me, I you know, 3-4 hours, I was not a happy camper. You know, I was ticked off. I really was. I was like, I got to get out of here. I got to find my sister. Something's really wrong.
So finally, I'm assuming around 11 p.m. on the evening of September 12th, you are able to get relieved of your duty, and you proceed to go look for your sister, look for a car, look for anything that you can find.
I had just moved back into Oneonta from another small town, and so I ran home and just changed my clothes into some comfy, ugly sweatpants and stuff. You know, I just, like I had told you before, I remember exactly what I was wearing. And it wasn't pretty, but I just remembered, like, I drove right downtown. And I went, it's like Water Street Extension, I think is what it's actually called, where you go in between all the bars that are located right behind Main Street. Like, you know, it's the same building, but, you know, Oneonta used to be in the Guinness Book of World Records for the most bars per square, you know, or something like that. So we had a lot of bars. And I'm thinking that's just not her. That's not, you know, that's very irresponsible. That's not something that she would do. But like, if she did, I'm going to, you know, I'm just going to, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm going to be like, but it just, I knew that wasn't the fact. I mean, I knew that was not what happened. So I just drove through. I mean, it was a Tuesday night, for crying out loud.
Yes.
You know, the students were back, but it was still pretty quiet. And so I drove through the extension, Market Street Extension, and that's how you get into the second level of the parking garage, which is usually the most used. And then I drove down, you know, circled that, drove back down the hill to Market Street, saw a sheriff's car parked in the Trailways bus station, which is located right in the bus garage, right in the car, you know, the 3-level, you know, garage, parking garage. And so I pulled in there, and there's 1, 2, 3 sections that you can park in. And so I pull in, and then I see her car. So I just skip the middle section. I go right, I park right behind her car.
And this was the ground level of the municipal parking structure, the ground level.
So, and it's weird because that's where my mom always parked. my mother always parked like on the side, like so facing like the street, because you can kind of see the street a little bit from the side of the parking garage, and she always parked there closer to the stairs.
Mm-hmm.
So when Jillian had stopped to cash her check, obviously that was, you know, where she parked. So she did go up and cash her check and then came down, but that's as far as she got. So when I saw her car, I just jumped right out of my car. My car was left open, and I went to open her car door, which is always locked if she's not in it. You know, I don't see
Mm-hmm.
anything. So I remember grabbing hard and then, you know, expecting resistance, and then the door just flung right open, and she was right there, like her head was right in her driver's seat of the car. And I remember her right arm being up, kind of, you know, like this. And I touched her face, and it was cold to the touch. So at that point, I didn't want to leave her. But you know, you don't have a cell phone. You have to go find somebody. You can't pick up your cell phone, call 911. I mean, you have to go.
Mm-hmm.
So I just tore out of the parking garage, and as I'm getting ready to pull out of the parking garage, that sheriff, which is so weird to have a sheriff in the city of Oneonta,
Mm-hmm.
he was driving by again on Market Street. And I don't know if I just jumped out of my car and started screaming and waving, or if I was honking my car or something like that. But I just stopped my car right there at the entrance. And I don't know if I drove to Jillian, or if I just left my car there. I think I drove. And then he just told me to go back, to go sit down or something like that. And that I don't remember really what happened, but I just remember that I was sitting on one of the curbs that, you know, that are in between the parking spaces. There's raised curb, you know. And the next thing I remember is Officer Joe Redman walking towards me and just shaking his head. And I knew. I mean, I think I knew anyways. But I just remember looking over there and just seeing just so many cops, and like the ambulance and the fire department, and just everybody was there. Everybody was there.
Nothing can possibly prepare you or anyone for witnessing something like that.
Oh, no, God, no.
During the month of August and September of 1989, there was considerable construction happening along Water Street and Lower Chestnut Street, right in the vicinity of the municipal parking structure.
Yeah, I don't remember that. I don't
The
know.
the only reason I mention that is it seems to me that, you know, if somebody is being attacked in such a brutal way, that, you know, somebody would have heard something and tried to intervene and help your sister.
Well, no, I remember that there was an actual police officer that was having lunch in one of the bars,
Mm-hmm.
Which is right, like just feet away from the parking garage. But of course, he's down in the bottom level.
Yeah. Well, the noise that summer was considerable. I mean, there was jackhammers, cement trucks, just major construction happening all throughout, you know, those afternoons in September of 1989. And I've always surmised that perhaps that was a contributing factor as to why, you know, if your sister called out for help, you know, no one heard her, and which just adds to the sadness of it all.
It was also a blitz attack. He came up behind her. and just started stabbing her. So she had no idea he was even coming.
Which raises another question. I know you and I have talked about this before. The attack itself was so brutal, which is something that we can discuss if you're comfortable discussing it. And yet somehow Jillian was found inside her car. In other words,
I think he placed her there. I do. I think he placed her there because, obviously she had her keys in her hand to go unlock the car door because, like I said, she always locked the car.
mm-hmm.
So she had to have the car keys in her hand. And I know that she had to be put in by the passenger seat. I think he had to place her in there like that because her feet were on the passenger side floor. And so her midsection was over, it was a passenger, it was a stick shift. So, buckle seats, I guess. So, and she was over that. So I think that that's what he had done is he had placed her in there.
David Dart and Jillian, I'm assuming they didn't know each other. This wasn't an attack that was the result of any sort of jealousy or unrequited love or anything of that nature.
No, everybody knew who he was in school. Everybody knew who he was because he was such a violent person. He used to chase kids around with knives. I mean, it wasn't just girls that were scared of him. There were boys who were scared of him. Boys were very scared of him because he wasn't right. He would chase around with knives and want to beat everybody up, and
So his propensity for violence was well known prior to this happening. Mm-hmm.
He got at the age of 15. He was finally caught. Because he had succeeded before, and I know because I spoke to the girl who it had happened to, because he had raped before and succeeded, and the mother refused to do anything about it. So, she didn't want people looking at her differently, and then actually blamed her daughter for not fighting hard enough. So he had attempted to rape another young woman. And, thank God she got away, but he had a knife. He had a knife with him. Mm-hmm. And he lured her out of the home by, the pretense of being, that he had a bad day and he just really needed to talk to somebody. And, she was taught by her parents to, be nice to everybody, try to be everybody's friend. If somebody needs a friend, you be that friend. That's how she was brought up, was to be nice to everybody. Mm-hmm. And so that's how he got her outside, and he kind of got her in between two houses, and they lived in Portlandville, which is in between Oneonta and Milford. And there's the Susquehanna River runs right behind through there. So he got her in between two houses out back, and she was able to get away, and her parents did follow through and press charges. So at the age of 15, he was sent away to a juvenile home or something. And I was told by the victim that he was offered counseling. Mm-hmm. And he said, nah, he didn't want it.
Jennifer, prior to your sister's murder, had you ever had any interaction with David Dart?
Yes, actually. I was working at a factory, and I had been there for a couple of years, I think. And all of a sudden, he walked in. Mm-hmm. And I immediately recognized him, and I told everybody, I said, stay away from him. This guy is like bad news. You know, he raped a girl. He attempted to rape another girl. He's been in juvie. You know, just stay away from him. And then one day at work, he walked down my line, is what we used to call it, and he slipped me a note. And I opened it, and it's, if I told you had a nice body, would you hold it against me? It's like, you know,
Yeah.
just made my skin crawl. Just then, I mean, it made my skin crawl.
One of the things that I want to emphasize for people who are listening, Oneonta, New York, in case you don't know where it is, it's a small city in upstate New York. It's located between Binghamton and Albany. It's approximately in the center of the state. It's a small college town or city. Something like this is highly unusual. Murder is just something that doesn't happen. Prior to Jillian's murder, the most famous case that I'm aware of happened in December of 1977 when Linda Wilsey was murdered by Ricky Knapp. But this event in September of 1989, it just sent shockwaves through the community, and it leaves this indelible impression where it's always there. For any of us who knew Jillian, who are friends with her, your family.
Well, because she was a member of the community, you know, and it's sad because Linda Wilsey lost her life. But you know, she wasn't, and not to discount, you know, but I'm sure her community went through it all the same that we did, but she wasn't from our community. So it hurt us as, you know, it hurt us because it happened where we were by somebody who was local, I guess.
Right.
I don't know how local he was, but
Linda Wilsey was from Long Island. She was a student attending SUNY Oneonta. And whereas Jillian grew up, you know, Milford is adjacent to Oneonta. She was part of the local community.
A graduate class of like 23 if you're lucky.
After going through everything you've been through, do you suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder? I mean, you must live with this every day.
Every day. Every single day. There's not one day that goes by that I don't think about her, you know, and I think it would be one thing if New York State had tougher laws, you know, then maybe I could just mourn her and kind of put, you know, but I can't because he's, you know, he's reached parole. You know, 5 years ago he reached parole. So, you know, now we're stuck with that.
This is something for our final podcast that we'll be addressing, which is, you know, the parole system and what it's putting you through as a victim of this situation and how difficult it is to have to every 2 years keep readdressing.
It used to be every 2 years. It's not even that anymore.
But again, one of the things that is important to emphasize is just for all of us who knew Jillian, her friends, family, people who cared for her, who loved her, this event just, it sticks with you. It's always there. It's indelibly, you know, marked in one's psyche. It just doesn't go away, does it? No, it doesn't.
In fact, we have a Facebook page called Justice for Jillian with a GILLIAN. And that page there has so many things that were written by her friends that shows, you know, things that I didn't even know about her, you know. I thought she was, you know, all that and a piece of cake, you know what I mean? I was her big sister. I just adored her, you know. She was my baby sister. She was my baby. Yeah. I took care of her. So, but you know, growing up, obviously, you know, when you're in the same house, you have fights and this and that. But you know, for the most part, we got along. We got along very well, you know. have very fond memories of her.
One strange connection to this whole case that I have that stands out is that the location of the bar where she was working on 514 Main Street, I've mentioned this to you before. When I was a little kid, my father and his girlfriend at the time, they ran a bar at that same exact location. And during the weekends, when they would be doing bookkeeping or cleaning the place or accounting or what have you, I spent so much time there playing the Space Invaders video game. There was a pool table and a jukebox. And it's just so strange to think that that's where Jillian was working. That's where she was supposed to arrive on the evening of September 12th, but never did. So it just adds to the sadness for me with that connection.
Well, you were lucky to know her, though, and you met her and you were friends with her. And, you know, so you were one of the lucky ones, you know, who were a part of her life.
Yes. What I will do for anyone who's interested in learning more about Jillian or more about what Jennifer's doing is I'll include a link in this video description for the Facebook page. And we'll have a follow-up conversation about the parole system in New York State and everything that you're battling. And your fortitude is so inspiring and amazing. And I know Jillian would be incredibly proud of you. And you know, is just lucky to have you, you know, preserving her legacy and ensuring that she receives the justice that she deserves.
I always used to stick up for her, you know, so my job still isn't done. I mean, she's still my little sister, and her memory and what she went through. I mean, you know, I still have to fight for her, and I will do it to my last dying breath.
Well, I have so many fond memories of your sister when we were in junior high, going back to, there was a roller skating rink in Oneonta that was very popular at the time called Interstate 88. We spent a lot of time. It's still there.
Still there.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time.
Doesn't smell as bad as it used to, but it's still there.
That's funny. Well, I want to thank you for your time. You've been incredibly generous with your time and just sharing all of this information, which is very helpful and hopefully healing. It's been a pleasure talking to you today.
I thank you for doing this for Jillian, Darren. I can't thank you enough.
It's my honor, my pleasure.
It's me right in the heart, and I thank you very much.
Thank you. I'll include a link to your Facebook page below. Thank you, everybody, for watching this installment, and perhaps we'll do a follow-up soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you.